Hey everyone, this is Nitro. In this video, I want to talk about the way to build Sonya to make use of her 3C skill, because now that she has access to her 3C skill, she's actually quite a usable PvP oriented character. So before I go into details about this, I'm actually going to do show a demonstration battle of Sonya in action before talking about her 3C in greater detail and then the way to build her. Alright, so the demonstration battle, which will just be the first part of one of these Apex fights, is actually from a guildmate, Kumi. So he uses Sonya in PvP, and here we go. So let's play the battle that he shared. So I'm going to skip the pick ban phase and just jump right into the fight. And here we go. So what we see here is, well, doesn't really matter, but his party has Estelle, Yusuke, Liana, Sonya, and Bozo in it. And the opponent is running Yulia, Landius, Bozo, Rachel, and Tieris. So let's get started. Actually, sorry, let me just go back a step first to show a stat difference, okay? So, base stats wise, after enchant values have been added, this Sonya has 1159 attack and 493 int, right? The bone dinos on this Sonya have 987 attack, which is extraordinarily high for a soldier, right? By comparison, for example, Yulia's unicorns actually have a bit less at 932, right? Landius's Royal Cavalry have a mere 746 and so on. So Sonya's soldiers have incredibly high attack value. So let's just continue. So, first there is Enduring Hope used, which grants the whole party +1 mobility. Right? Enduring Hope is just a great 3C as well. And then next, Bozo activates a faction buff, so that now this Sonya does have +20% attack. And we see here now, or +20% attack, +20% int. We see here now that Sonya's attack has been buffed to 1355, int is 569, and the soldiers now have a pretty terrifying 1115 attack. It is quite terrifying. Incredibly strong soldiers. So, in any case though, so now the opponent makes a mistake. Moves Yulia up, which actually puts her in range of this Sonya. And so Sonya charges forward with Strike, moves forward another 3 tiles, uses the 3C attack, and smashes Yulia. Okay. A few interesting things to note is, first of all, not sure if you noticed this detail, but the debuff, Curse of Wounding, was applied before combat began. Okay? If we just play that again, debuffed, then the combat begins. So, this effect, the debuff effect of the 3C, Chaos Helix, kicks in before the combat begins. This is a very useful point. Now Dish activates Guard. And now I feel Dish made a major mistake, which is she used Rachel to kill this Sonya. And the mistake there is that Rachel heals up Sonya and kills her, right? Because of the heal reversal. So, I mean, there weren't that many options there for Dish at this point, but Dish did have the option of leaving Sonya alone, right? And instead having Yulia end her turn twice and then finally heal her up after that, right? Yes, you would have to leave Sonya alive, but that could have been done. Or the other option would have been maybe to have, let's say, Tieris attack and weaken this Sonya, or even have Bozo come up and sleep Sonya first, then kill Sonya the following turn after Yulia is moved back. Right? Dish made mistakes. He should not have ended Bozo's turn that early. Shouldn't have faction buffed, long story short. Probably should have moved Rachel first, in fact, and then the other characters. But nonetheless, this was a pretty decent demonstration of what Sonya can do in terms of attacking, and damage output and so on. So that was one example I want to go over. I'll go over a few other examples at the end of this video from other players and so on. So now let's go over Sonya in detail at this point. First of all, let me go over the drawbacks of using Sonya. And there's quite a few. The first one is the runestone requirement to use her. In order to use her to her full potential, you're going to need to get all her classes, which means 3 runestones. That's pretty expensive. You can kind of skimp out and choose Grand Knight, Grand Master, and Ninja, but then you're going to be missing the Unicorn and Unicorn Master classes, which actually increase her base intelligence by 37, right? And it's actually a very important factor due to how Chaos Helix works. So it is possible to skimp out, but then you may lose. You may struggle to one-shot enemies, right? So something to be aware of. So, other than that, then the second issue with using Sonya is soldier choice. Soldier choice wise, her best soldier is considered to be Bone Dinos, because that has by far the highest attack of any option here. And as a result, Bone Dinos aren't exactly a common soldier for people that have leveled up, so you're going to have to level up a soldier just to use Sonya, right? Which is not that great. Other than Bone Dinos, Heaven's Guard is considered a strong option because they also get plus 45% attack increase, just like Bone Dinos do, but Heaven's Guard have less base attack. Okay, all my soldiers here, except for Vampire Bats, are all at level 5. So we can see here that at level 5, the Bone Dinos has 621 attack, the Heaven's Guard has 596, so it is lower, right? Vampire Bats generally not considered to be a top tier soldier for Sonya in this kind of situation because they don't provide any kind of attack increase. They just increase healing. Okay. As for the Demon Soldiers, the Undead Knights and the Spider Demon Elf, well, Undead Knights do get some attack increase, but it's less than what the Bone Dinos and Heaven's Guard get. So they're generally not recommended at all. Okay. The Spider Demon Elf can be worth considering simply because they do magic damage, right? So in certain situations, you may be required to attack, let's say, I don't know, Felix soldiers or something, and you might want magic damage to break the Lancer soldiers, right? In addition, demon units won't get any kind of damage decrease, the way Bone Dinos and Heaven's Guards do. So Spider Demon Elf is the alternate soldier, generally speaking, for Sonya, and may also need to be leveled up. Right? So you're going to want Bone Dinos, you're going to want Spider Demon Elf, which can be a real struggle to level 2 different soldiers that are so rare. Okay. So that's the second disadvantage of using Sonya. The third and final disadvantage is that because of the way the 3C skill works, you're going to have to enchant your gear quite a bit, because you want your primary stat will be attack, so you're going to want plus 15% attack on the weapon, plus 5% attack on the Arcane Garb and Fury of Tyr. You're going to want 10% on the accessory. But in addition to that, you're going to want intelligence increases as well. So it's not easy to get both. And that's why you may have to use a lot of enchant scrolls to upgrade Sonya. So those are the 3 issues to building her properly. Now, with that said, assuming you get... One interesting note about Sonya's soldiers that I didn't mention just now is, remember how I mentioned that Sonya applies a debuff before combat begins? Well, that's important because of the way demon soldiers work. Okay? Demon soldiers from the advanced training section have these 2 techs both affect demon soldiers. And the effect of them is that demon and mage attack and defense increases by 20% when battling against enemies with buffs, and Demon and Mage attack and defense increase by 20% when battling against enemies with debuffs. So as long as you're fighting someone that is buffed, since Sonya debuffs the enemy before combat begins, you're looking at a 20% increase and then another 20% stat increase in attack. So the demon units actually, despite their low base attack, will actually get quite a bit of attack increase due to those 2 techs. It's important to note that point. Okay. As for the other techs that demon units are affected by. This one just increases defense and magic defense. And then the last one here, right, is that all demons gain additional damage when they have a debuff. You're not likely to have a debuff when you attack, so this attack won't kick in either. Okay. So, with that mentioned, finally, I should also mention Spider Demon Elf at level 10. They should have a 75% chance to reduce enemy mobility by 2 and reduce enemies' magic defense by 20%, so that the Spider Demon Elves can do more damage to the enemy as well. Okay. So just another interesting point. Sonya can potentially apply a lot of debuffs on the enemy with one attack as well. Alright, so with all the soldiers covered and so on, let's move back and, the reasons not to use her covered. Let's talk about why she can be so good. Okay, and that's, of course, the 3C skill. Chaos Helix has multiple effects, and they're all quite useful. The first effect, of course, is that this skill does 1.6 times damage to the enemy. The second thing is that this skill has 2 range, so a nice bonus there. The third effect, which is incredibly powerful as well, is that, well, of course, the melee soldiers participate in the attack, and also, if the enemy's defense is lower than their magic defense, 70% of your intelligence is added to your attack stat before battle begins. And then otherwise, so if the enemy's defense is higher than the magic defense, then you add 70% of your attack to your int stat, and you deal magic damage for this combat. In addition, of course, it applies Curse of Wounding on the enemy, where the enemy is prevented from healing, and they'll instead take damage equals to 20% of amount healed. This debuff lasts 2 turns. And then finally, as we saw when Sonya attacked Yulia, if the enemy hero is a holy unit, before battle, their skill range is reduced by 1 for 1 turn. So multiple effects, all quite useful, right? This middle portion of being able to do magic damage or physical damage is especially important in the case of Sonya, because you're basically targeting the weak point of the opposing character, giving you a higher chance of one-shotting them. Right? For example, if I just bring up, I don't know, Elwyn or whatever, right? In the case of Elwyn, let's say, Elwyn generally has extremely high defense, but very low magic defense, right? So that means if you're attacking Elwyn with your Sonya as an example, she's going to do magic damage and probably get to one-shot Elwyn as a result. Probably, because once again, there is the Sonya being cavalry class against Lancer class Elwyn, that may cause issues. But the fact that she can switch freely between either magic damage or physical damage is a major aspect of using Sonya. Now, one thing I should mention is, some people ask why use Sonya in the Grandmaster class instead of Unicorn Knight or Unicorn Master. And that is related to Sonya's stats. Okay. So I'm going to quickly bring up the Wiki Grister page for Sonya, because that page does show Sonya's stats. So quickly bringing that up, we see here that the Grandmaster class has 554 base attack and then 256 int. The Unicorn Master class, on the other hand, has 380 attack and 375 int. So it's very balanced, but neither one gets particularly high as a result. So overall, I would say it's better to focus on the Grandmaster class, where you can incredibly buff up her attack stat, and then that would just help things overall in general. Okay. Alright, so with all that mentioned, let's just jump back into the game now and go over some of the other details of Sonya. Skills selection. Skills selection for Sonya in this case is incredibly simple. You're going to absolutely want the strike skill, because it allows her to move an additional 3 blocks, and in addition, for her attack, she will get an attack increase of 20%. So this acts like a faction buff for this single strike. So you actually don't need a faction buff for Sonya to use her. So that's 2 points. 3 points will go into her 3C skill, Chaos Helix. And then you'll have one last point to put into. And the 1 point skills that Sonya has is a choice of, let's say, Blast, Bloodbath, right? Neither of these are considered that good for her. And by far the best one for Sonya is from her ninja class, which is ninjutsu. Far and away the best choice for 1 point. That's because this skill allows her to pass through all terrain as if they were planes, so she ignores terrain effects. And in addition, if she ends up attacking from a tile that increases defense, her attack is increased by the same value. It's a very nice bonus to get. Okay, so ninjutsu, by far her best 1 point skill. So with her skill covered, with the drawbacks covered, with the soldiers covered, let's move on to talk about her equipment. And the equipment that's ideal for her is pretty much what you see here. For the weapon, you're going to want her exclusive Dark Dawn, because it increases both attack and int, and in addition, it can potentially do a fixed damage strike on the enemy. Okay, so when actively hitting an enemy with a melee attack, you deal fixed damage to the enemy 1 time, and the damage is 2 times your hero's intelligence. And when actively attacking the enemy with a ranged attack, after battle, you deal fixed damage to the enemy 1 time, and damage equals 2 times hero's attack. So your choice, right? You can melee attack and then do fixed damage beforehand, or you can ranged attack and do fixed damage afterwards. It's a nice and useful effect. Other than Dark Dawn, for the armor, Sonya is never expected to survive after her attack. In large part because look at her stats. She has B hit point growth, C defense growth, C magic defense growth. This is garbage growth for survivability in general. As an aside, even Leon, who is pretty frequently used, he has A HP growth, B defense growth, and he still generates one-shotted by any kind of melee attack on him anyways. So if Leon can't survive, absolutely Sonya won't survive any kind of attack. Okay, so she's a glass cannon. So since she's a glass cannon, which armor you give her doesn't particularly matter, so you might as well choose items that maximize her damage output. And that's what Arcane Battle Garb does. It allows you to deal a fixed damage hit equals to 1.5 times your hero's magic defense after battle. Once again, yes, the fixed damage hit is not much damage because her magic defense is garbage. But every bit of damage helps, right? Especially if you might be on the verge of one-shotting the enemy, that fixed damage might be just enough for you to kill that opponent. For the helmet, Fury of Tyr, which seems to be a changed name for these helms. Take as an aside, that's an aside though, and the reason for Fury of Tyr is simple. This helmet, where after you take an action, if you haven't attacked, you gain skill damage plus 10% at level 50 on the helmet. So you're going to use Strike. Strike is considered a turn. That will trigger Fury of Tyr for your attack to do 10% additional skill damage for your 3C Chaos Helix. Okay. So that's why that is the best helmet. Of course, if you truly don't have a Fury of Tyr, any other helmet will do. Maybe you can choose a Vampire Mask, for example, a Reaper's Breath to debuff the enemies after combat if you decide to leave her close to the enemies to give them all fixed damage debuffs. Keep in mind that, of course, a debuff like this can generally get dispelled by the enemy healer, but still, it's an option, right? All the other options are basically much worse than the Fury of Tyr. Oops. Sorry about that. I just dropped my mouse. So I'm just gonna pick that up so I can continue the video. Okay, so that is her best helmet, and now I am going to move on to talk about her accessory. Okay, so in line with this whole trend of maximizing damage output, her accessory should be the one that gives the most attack value overall, right? And accessories that increase attack the most would be things like the Lone Star Armlet, which provides a 10%, oops, I clicked on the wrong thing, sorry. It provides a 10% attack and defense increase as long as there are no friendly units within 2 blocks of you, right? Given that she is charging far ahead of the enemies to suicide strike more or less, Lone Star Armlet should absolutely be her best accessory, or one of the options, right? Other than Lone Star Armlet though, you can always choose the items like Judge's Talisman, which gives 8% attack increase, and if you're battling against holy units, an extra 12% attack. That's a very viable option. Similarly, Slayer's Emblem. which increases your attack by a further 12% when battling against flyers. Can work out very well too. And so these three offer the maximum attack, and that makes them the best items for Sonya. But other than these three, you can choose pretty much any other attack accessory. For example, winged shin guards, overlord's badges, right? Those are all viable options if you don't have these ones. Right? There are also other attack accessories. I think I've deleted all of the other ones, but basically any kind of attack accessory will do. This all assumes, of course, you're in Grand Knight, the cavalry class. Okay. Now, as for enchant values, okay, because of the Chaos Helix conversion of increasing attack or int, and because of the increased fixed damage from her exclusive of attack or int, you're basically going to want every enchant to increase both your attack and your intelligence, which is honestly a bit of a pain. Okay. So you're going to be constantly rolling for attack increases and int increases. And the main goal would be something like, ideally 15% attack and then maybe like 10% or 15% int on the weapon, right? The armor and the helmet, you're going to want both attack and int if possible, although it's only 5% increase of each. That's the maximum for these two slots. Okay. And finally, for your accessory, you're going to once again want attack and int, kind of like this. Okay. So, in addition to all this, then, in terms of the enchant for her, her ideal enchant is really Full Moon. Because Full Moon provides first, attack and int increase of 5%, and second, the 4-piece effect provides all offensive and defensive stats are increased by 10%, which means it's in total, this is 15% attack increase, 15% int increase. Okay. No other enchant can do something similar. Like if you use magic, it would be just 5% attack int, 5% attack, 5% int, and 10% skill damage, right? And so clearly, Full Moon provides the most benefit to Sonya. It may be possible to consider an enchant like, maybe, I don't know, Meteor, perhaps, right? Because that does increase all damage after entering battle by 20%. But at the end of the day, keep in mind that this is basically 15% int, 15% attack, 20% damage increase is ultimately not that comparable in my opinion. So Full Moon is the way to go for Sonya. Alright, so now that all of that is covered, the very final thing to mention would be her class mastery enchants. And as with her equipment enchants, you pretty much want to do the exact same thing. For every single slot, you're going to want attack increase, int increase, and then probably skill increase. Okay, nice and simple. Because there's no point increasing defense, magic defense, or hit points when you have no chance of surviving, right? So maximum damage output is the way to go. Attack, int, and skill. Even for the arena mastery enchants, you're going to want attack, int, and then skill, and then the last two slots will probably be increase your crit rate, and then increase your crit damage in percentage, right? So full attack enchant is all you want for Sonya. Nothing else. No hit points, no defense, no magic defense. Okay. And there we have it. So that covers everything about the way to build Sonya. And then for this very final part, I'm going to have, I guess, 2 more clips of Sonya in action. And the clips will be, I think, Sonya attacking, let's say, Juggler for one, and it might be Sonya attacking Landius on the other one. Okay? So, thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you found this video useful to you. And on that note, Nitro out. So, the first video example here shows Sonya going to attack an enemy Landius. Now, the important thing about this attack is, first, this enemy Landius has very high stats. It has 1630 attack and 849 defense, so it is a well-built Landius, especially with 15k hit points. The Royal Cavalry, you can see 10,000 hit points. Overall, very well built. Okay. Now, the thing about Sonya attacking Landius is, in order to do an attack properly, Sonya will have to move into melee attack range. Because if Sonya is attacking in melee range, she will do fixed damage before combat. And the fixed damage before combat can break the Royal Cavalry guard. So let's begin the attack and take a look at what happens. So now, here, Sonya is going to strike forward to move into 3 block range and attack Landius from this wall tile, right? Fixed damage beforehand, 3600 damage, knocks the Royal Cavalry below their threshold, and Sonya is able to one-shot Landius. She herself nearly dies, but the one-shot succeeds, and you can see here that Landius took some damage from the healing light effect, right? So Landius does live because ultimately this debuff, heal reversal, is only 20%, not 100% damage reduction, right? But nonetheless, Landius is now in a seriously dangerous situation because he's extremely low. Any kind of healing effect on him will initially be turned into damage. Like even if this Wilder moves up and dispels this Landius and keeps him alive, you know, a follow-up attack will finish off this Landius and leave his party incredibly vulnerable. You know, for example, player 2 Sigma can launch an extreme range attack to finish off this Landius. So that is why Sonya can be absolutely vital in PvP, even against enemy Landiuses. In this second example clip, we have Sonya about to strike a Juggler that has Triton activated. Okay, and the Juggler has, I think, around 870 defense or so, so it's a pretty standard, well-built Juggler. Sonya here, though, is extremely well-built. We see here that she has 1777 attack, 670 int, and attack blessing with a faction buff with hand of tear all on her. Okay, in this case, though, she is running the undead knights as soldiers rather than bone dinos. Okay, so let's skills wise, it's pretty much as mentioned before. There's Chaos Helix, Strike, and Ninjutsu. In addition, for her attack, she is going to be on this wall tile providing 30% defense increase and attacking at 2 range. So that should be absolutely maximized Sonya attack, right? Attacking from a wall tile would, due to ninjutsu, would lead to further increased attack. So here we go, right? So now she moves in and attacks, and with Chaos Helix, her attack goes up to 1914. Despite that, Juggler lives, right? He takes quite a lot of fixed damage, but he still lives. For a display of the Juggler stats, this is what is on screen right now. So we see that this Juggler has 18,189 hit points, so this should be a Blood Pack Juggler. And in terms of raw stats, it has 830 defense and 562 magic defense. So in this situation, because Juggler's magic defense is lower than his defense, Sonya was actually doing magic damage, right? So she was magic attacking based on int against this magic defense of 562, right? And I think during the battle, it showed that her intelligence attack was what? 1,917 int attack. So her stats for this attack were extremely high. She also even had attack blessing on her. Despite all of that, she still failed to one-shot this Juggler. So I guess it just shows just how powerful Juggler's Lobster Behemoths with their 50% magic reduction effect really is, right? Juggler still survived against this insanely powerful Sonya. So with all that said though, keep in mind that even though Sonya failed to one-shot this Juggler, this is a situation where follow-up attacks could very easily crush the remaining enemies. In particular, Juggler is now at very low hit points and has the heal reversal applied onto him. So if you had a party that can follow up, Juggler is very easily killed, you know, and then you can engage against the remaining enemies of player 2. Right? So in other words, I'm going to quickly jump back into the game to mention how Sonya ultimately fits into an Apex team. Okay. So, in conclusion, Sonya really fits best in a party that is based on the rush strategy configuration for Apex Arena. So the rush strategy involves very high mobility characters who can assault the enemy and keep attacking. So characters that fit into this kind of configuration include, let's say, Luna with her Wind God Realm, Leon with his ability to assault and his 3C that can, break up enemy formations and do AoE damage, Omega, who can move forward 3, use Cold Blood to move another 2 tiles, then attack at 3 range with his Uller's Bow. Illustrial, who could more or less do the same, move 5 tiles forward, have chances to negate mobility penalties on defensive terrain, and then if she has an Uller's Bow, she can attack at 3 range while ignoring guard potentially. Zerida, who has an extreme range attack after turn 1, and let's say Claret, who can move 10 or 12 tiles depending on whether she gets Breeze activation, right? So all of these are characters who can fit very well into the assault strategy team. Even Angelina, once she gets her 3C, as a side note, she doesn't have it right now, so she won't fit in right now, but in the future she will. And yeah, and then of course other characters who would fit into this team include Yusuke, for example, because Yusuke, after an ally is killed, he gets additional stats, additional range, and then his Spirit Gun can attack at very long ranges, right? Since if you're in your Imagine state, you get another additional +1 range. So a high mobility, and then finally, of course, Diharto, who similar to various other characters can also strike, and if it's a cavalry, Diharto can also bring, Calamity for another high mobility attack. So there's a whole bunch of characters who can fit very well together with Sonya to crush the enemy in a, basically a rush strategy. Right? So there we have it. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you found this video useful to you. And on that note, Nitro out.